Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Matthew Stafford is a venture capitalist and founder of 9 others, networking dinners for 10 founders or entrepreneurs. Even so, he doesn't consider himself to be a natural networker. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast today, Matthew.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Now, you're the perfect guest for this podcast, partly because you're a venture capitalist, which is going to be really interesting to talk about, but also you run a networking business. And of course, we're all about networking here. But first of all, tell me a little bit about your childhood. What were you like at school? And did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Oh, goodness, childhood. So I grew up on farms in the northeast of England. And I sort of think my childhood kind of was split into 2. So up until the age of 9, I was living on one farm. That was quite big. My cousin still runs that today. And I was living on that one. And my father and my uncle, two of his brothers, ran it. And that was all grand. And things were great. You know, it was fantastic. Things were really, really good. It was a big farm. You know, we were doing well, and that was all grand. And we were doing so well. We were doing quite well enough that the kind of tradition is that the youngest son gets another farm.
Yeah.
So, you know, the brothers were working together, working hard, making decent money. They save up, and then we buy a second farm. And my father is just the youngest. He's a twin, so he's just the youngest. So when I was about 9. We bought another farm and we went to live on that, and it was much smaller, and you know, had things carried on as they had in sort of, you know, the first 9 years of my life and before, it would have been grand, but you know, farming in the sort of second 9 years wasn't what it was.
Yeah.
So that was pretty difficult. Anyway, we ended up selling that one when a few years later, when I was 16, and then moved into the town. And I think, well, I mean, it was idyllic in many ways, right? You know, all of that, both chunks of 9 years of my childhood. You know, it was growing up in the middle of nowhere, loads of freedom. It was just tremendous in the countryside. We could just do whatever we wanted, and I absolutely loved it. But I think the sort of second 9 years were a bit more challenging for my parents. You know, financially, business wise. So yeah, that wasn't so great, but you know, it turned out okay in the end. We were able to sell it, and then my father retired, and it, you know, it was quite stressful working in a declining industry like farming as it was.
Yeah.
So that was the right thing to do. And you know, how was I at school? Well, again, I think that was a bit split into 2. So up until the age of 9, I went to a tiny village primary school. There were 25 pupils in the whole school. In my year group, I was the one boy and there were 4 girls.
Yeah.
And you know, 2 classrooms for those 25 kids, and I mean, it was just great. I loved it, and I did well, and you know, I think I had a decent brain and all that sort of stuff. And then at the age of 9, I moved schools into the main town, and it was a 3-tier system. So I went to a middle school. And, you know, I'd gone from a school of 25 to a school of 250.
Yeah, big shock.
And, yeah, big difference. My God. And then at the age of 13, went to the high school, which was, I don't know, I think it was maybe 2.5, 3 times the size of that. So it was, you know, 800-900 kids. You know, and I think I just got a bit lost, and you know, mostly my fault. But I think I sort of just slid into being, you know, doing okay rather than excelling. You know, so I think I suffered a bit. You know, mostly my fault. But I just sort of bobbed along, and it was all pretty easy, to be honest.
So what did you do when you left school? What came next?
Well, at high school, I didn't work very hard, so I got the results I deserved. So I got a couple of really crappy A-levels. I mean, again, I had a brilliant time. I had loads of friends. It was really good. You know, no complaints. I was messing around, making extra money on the side and all that sort of stuff. But just, I was not pushing myself academically. And I'd kind of just breezed through and did okay, you know, GCSE level. And then, you know, tried that again for A-levels, which are a lot harder. So I got the results I deserved for the work I put in. So, that was not good. So I did move out of home, and I went to like a higher education college to try and do a bit of a degree. But yeah, it didn't really work out. I was there a matter of weeks, and I just knew it wasn't right for me. So kind of bumbled around for a bit. And then a friend of mine had done a management training scheme in retail. So I did that. So I got a job in the John Lewis in Windsor at the age of 19 on their like A-level management trainee scheme, and started working there. And I don't know. It was, interesting journey, really.
But you did eventually go to university, didn't you, later on? What prompted that?
I did later. So then, so I worked at John Lewis for a bit, and it was good. Look, it was a good grounding. I was 18. It gave me a kick up the backside. It set some high standards and all that sort of stuff. So it was pretty good, and it was a great company to work for. And then I left that. I started a t-shirt company. I ran my own business for a year or so, embroidering logos into t-shirts. That was okay. I mean, I'm skipping a lot, but getting to the university bit, and then I sort of went back into retail, into management. It's sort of I sort of describe it as a few of my lost years. Didn't really know what I was doing. Quite fed up, not really knowing what to do. And then I managed to talk my way into RBS. So a friend of mine was working there and doing pretty well, and in a sort of a coordination role in their IT department. So I was like, "Come on, mate, get me an interview." So he got me an interview with his boss, and yeah, I mean, this guy, it happens a couple of times in your life where people take a chance on you, and I interviewed with this guy a couple of times and had a few phone calls and whatnot, and just promised him with genuine enthusiasm that I would show up and I would turn up early and I would put the work in and I would work hard and I would get some good results and I would contribute. And he, like I say, he gave me a chance. So I ended up working at RBS for a bit in the IT department, moved into the consulting department, getting more and more technical. And then to cut a long story short, one thought, okay, at the grand old age of 27, right, maybe now's the time to look at what I really want to do and what would be most useful. So that's when I started looking around and applying to universities. So yeah, I went to university at the age of 27, with all the 18-year-olds with their straight A's. Yeah. And there was me with a couple of crappy A levels, but some work experience.
How was that experience?
It was brutal. It was difficult. So I picked, because I was working in financial services IT. So I wanted to do something technical. So I applied to do computer science at a bunch of universities in the Northeast, because I either wanted to be in the Northeast or in Edinburgh. And I managed, again, like the second person to take a big chance on me, let me into Durham, one of the best universities in the country.
It is, because I'm a graduate of Durham.
So you are. Okay, well, only the very brightest people go there, plus me. So again, he took a chance on me because I said, look, I've worked hard to get myself in this, financial services role and done well. Okay, I've got crap A levels, but I got crap A levels because I didn't work very hard at them. And he said, okay, fine. So they let me in, and I was 27 with some 18-year-olds. I had terrible A levels. They all had straight A's. Yeah. It was brutal, and it's a lot of mathematics. And I hadn't done mathematics since I was 16. So I hadn't done mathematics for 11 years. So it was really, really damn hard. But I did what I said I would do. I put the work in, and I turned up, and I got in early, and I left late. And it worked. Yeah, it worked. I discovered I really did have a brain, and that was great.
And so, what did you do once you got your degree?
So then I finished up there. I mean, proper life-changing event, fantastic, great confidence boost, and all the rest of it. It'll always be with me. And then I moved back down to London, where I'd lived for a bit before, and sort of carried on in financial services. A bit more senior, a bit more technical, and all that sort of stuff. So did that for another 3 or 4 years. But it was just getting more and more depressing, and it wasn't like going to Durham and getting the degree was like the be all and end all. but it actually was a big deal for me personally. And I think it just gave me a lot of sort of confidence in myself. And, you know, it sort of made me really want to work hard
Yeah.
because I had worked damn hard and it had worked. And there I was back in big companies with, you know, tens of thousands of employees, and most people weren't really working very hard. And the very small number that did work hard, it sort of didn't really make a difference to them. You know, they didn't get any massive reward because they were working their backsides off. And that's what I wanted. So, you know, now we're talking sort of 2008-ish. You know, I'm starting to discover startup companies,
Yeah.
and that people can have ideas for, you know, websites, products, services, and actually they can start these companies and they can go very big very quickly. And if they put the work in, and there's a bit of luck and all the rest of
Yeah.
it, actually they can get the massive rewards. And the people that I was working with in big financial services companies, some of them were putting the work in, and their lives were okay. You know, they had, you know, nice enough houses, nice enough families, cars, kids, you know, holidays, all that sort of stuff. But they were so miserable.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to get, you know, 10, 15 years down the road
Yeah.
and be trapped like they were, because
Yeah.
they were trapped. They couldn't escape and they hated their lives. And I just didn't want that. I wanted to work hard, but I wanted something out of it.
Yeah. So what was your next step then?
So next step, another friend of mine. So you see, it's good to have friends who can inspire you
It's
and
all
have
part of your
examples.
network.
Yeah, so not that I realised it at the time, but another friend of mine had gone to business school, and he was more of a corporate guy, and it had given his career an absolute boost, a great shot in the arm in sort of, you know, 2006, 2007. So there was I in sort of 2008-ish, wondering what to do, being a bit miserable. So I thought, oh, well, this guy's, you know, my friend's gone to business school and it has done his career a load of good. Maybe I'll do that. You know, I've got one degree, I'll go get another one. So I did that and shopped around and got into Imperial College and studied for an MBA there, 2 years part-time whilst I was working. Without, you know, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to get on and I wanted to work. Was that actually working hard and progressing through some of these big companies, or was that doing something a bit more entrepreneurial or a bit different? You know, the MBA is it gets a lot of criticism, but, you know, it's a management degree, it's a leadership degree, it's lots and lots of different subjects. It's not, you know, it's not rocket science. The undergraduate maths that I did really took it out of me. You know, the MBA stuff wasn't as hard, but it was just a lot of it was a lot of quantity.
Yeah.
You know, and a bunch of interesting people to study with and all the rest of it. So I did that, and it was there that I discovered venture capital. You know, when I was at Durham, Twitter had started, Facebook had started. You know, when Facebook just came to the UK, it was just in some universities, and we were one of those. So I was on that quite early. I got Gmail quite early. I got Twitter quite early. I was listening to podcasts coming out of San Francisco at that point. And then here we are a few years later, I'm studying venture capital and discovering that there are these, you know, small companies that I've never heard of, and they invest little bits of money into lots and lots of different startups. Most of them don't work out, but if you work hard and you help them, and, you know, there's a bit of luck and you can crack on, then actually, you know, everyone can make a lot of wealth and grow a business and have some impact and all that sort of stuff. So I thought, okay, that's what I fancy doing.
Yeah. And I know you've coined the term a pay-as-you-go investor. So what does that mean?
Well, that's how I invest now. So at the end of business school, I got a job with an early stage investor, and it was fantastic. I mean, it was so different to the financial services world I was in. There were 4 partners. There was me, and there was 1 part-time member of staff, and that was it. And I took more than a 50% pay cut to go there.
Yeah.
But my God, it's the best job I've ever had. I loved it because you were just so exposed. You couldn't hide. You know, you could have. I had to have ideas. I had to go make stuff happen, and if it worked, great, and we got the rewards. If it didn't, you know, you knew about it,
Yeah.
and we learnt from it, and we cracked on and did something else. So I was there for about 4 years, and that's where I started 9 Others. I started helping one high net worth guy on the side invest in students and graduates to start companies. I did an event that got one of the Y Combinator partners to come to London in 2011. So I was doing all sorts of different things. And then I thought, okay, great, this is for me. I want to do the investing stuff. But I hadn't built $1 billion company and sold it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sitting with piles of cash like the dragons.
Yes. Yeah.
Like like your typical investor is thought to be. So I knew I had to do it in a different way. So I helped, like I say, I helped one high net worth while I was there, and then I left that company, and we helped a couple of others after that, find investment opportunities. And through 9 others, that network, all sorts of interesting projects come my way. So I do some work, and I put some into the joint account, and I squirrel some money away. And then when I see the right investment opportunity, I invest. And if I can do it, I invest in that startup. So I've invested in a couple of dozen startups, and it is a bit pay as you go, because it's do some work, stash some money, and then when the right thing comes up, invest.
Yeah. Now, you've mentioned 9 others a couple of times now. So tell us what 9 others is and how it came about.
So 9 others is, well, it's really simple. The name is because it's yourself and 9 others go to dinner. So it is a dinner for 10 people, deliberately small, yourself and 9 others, loosely curated, because it's entrepreneurs, founders, people in startups. And the whole point is to come along, share a challenge, and help the other people, and that's it. So each person shares a challenge, shares what's keeping them up at night. It's Chatham House rule, and then as a group we spend 10-15 minutes trying to help out, because and I've been doing that pretty much every month since the end of 2011. So it's going to be 14 years this year.
Yeah.
And it's happened in 50 cities all around the world as well, where there's like an equivalent of me wants to host a dinner, get people together, share the challenge, and help the have the network help the network.
Yeah.
And how it came about was because myself and my co-founder Katie were working. We were working together. We were at different companies, but we were working together on a project back in 2011, and it was all about investment readiness. So it's about helping, teaching, connecting early stage startup founders with various types of investment. So mainly angels and venture capital companies. And in amongst this, we came up with the idea of doing dinners. So we'd have, half a dozen startups that were up to scratch and really good, and, a few investors that we knew were ready, willing, and able to invest in those types of companies. And we'd invite them to dinner. And the startups would pitch for a couple of minutes. There'd be a bit of Q&A, and then we'd move on to the next one. And they were just brilliant. They were off the chart successful. They led to follow-up meetings, investment, great deals, great companies being built, lots of wealth being created. Fantastic. But what happened at the end of each of those dinners was that the entrepreneurs would kind of huddle together in a corner and talk amongst themselves. And it used to really annoy us, because we'd got them there to talk to the investors, and they weren't doing that. We're like, come on, you're missing your chance of like building relationships with these investors. But then it happened often enough with lots of different people that we finally figured out what was happening. And it was that they'd kind of done the investor bit. So they'd done their pitch, they'd done the Q&A, they'd swapped the cards, they got the contact details, they'd said let's follow up. And then the last, the end of the very, very end of the night, the last 20 minutes or so, they had the opportunity to talk to other founders about the challenges that they were facing.
Yeah.
And we realized that, okay, they don't get to do that anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because everywhere else you're on show, right? Including our event. They were there, they were pitching, and everything's brilliant. But actually, they might have to chase an invoice, they might have to fire someone, they might have to find a new office, all these kind of normal business problems. So towards the end of 2011, Katie and I got our heads together and thought, right, what can we do to try and help that, that community of founders, of entrepreneurs, to solve those problems? And we thought, well, let's try and do a dinner and exclude the investors. So we'll just have, the founders and the entrepreneurs, and we'll see if we can help them solve their challenges. So that's kind of where it started. And we put one together, and we threw it, and we invited some people that we knew would give us some candid and robust feedback on whether it was a good idea or not. And they did, and some of it clicked, some of it didn't. So we did another one the following month. And like I say, we've done about one a month ever since.
Yeah. And where do you hold the events? Is it at different places each time?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, it's changed over the years. At the minute, we've hosted a lot of dinners in a fantastic space called Kindred in Hammersmith, which is like an open house community space that people can go and work in. But they have rooms upstairs and a fantastic chef and kitchen team. So we've had them there at Kindred a number of times. Our summer party is coming up next week. I don't know if this will go out before then or not, but next week is our summer party, and we're having that at a space in Dalston called Ramen Space, which is fantastic. And these are the kind of places we like, startup community type spaces. And Kindred is that in Hammersmith, and Ramen Space is formed out of Ramen Club. Startups kind of want to be or get towards being ramen profitable. Mm-hmm. They make just enough money to buy themselves a pot noodle. So this guy Charlie started a community of mostly bootstrapped SaaS startups. So there's a community of that, and that was all great online. And he's fairly recently opened up a space called Ramen Space, and that's where we're having the party next week.
Fantastic. And so, do you go yourself every time? Are you always part of the group?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gosh, I've learnt the most. It's incredible. So yeah, Katie and I go and we host it. And it's, like I say, it's Chatham House rule. It's a hosted dinner. We go around the table. Each person does a very, very brief intro, which, the shorter the better. It's like 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. But then more importantly, it's like, what's your challenge? What's really keeping you up at night? And then, like I say, we spend 10, 15 minutes trying to kick it around the table. And it's, have you tried this? Have you tried that? If, maybe that's not your problem and something else is, or, often people can share a challenge and you sort of think, I'm not sure if that's really the challenge. I think there's something sort of behind that if you scratch the surface. And that's the whole point of the Nine Others dinner. And then, some people might offer, I don't know, read this book, or you talk to my friend so-and-so, or, I've been through that and it worked out terribly, or I've been through that and this is what worked. And it's sort of getting hopefully useful bits of advice and nuggets and such like from people that are in your shoes but not in your business.
Yes.
And sometimes the entrepreneurs are in a completely different sector, or they're at a completely different stage, but I think that's what makes it all the more valuable. You're not coming there to hear from some person up on a pedestal telling you how it was years ago.
Yeah.
It's very much look, this is what I'm going through right now. What the hell can I do? Yeah.
So you have said that you don't feel that you're a natural networker. What do you mean by that?
Well, somebody once described me as a social introvert, and I think that's kind of spot on. That was someone at business school, which I think was pretty insightful from them. I always remember it. And because at the beginning of the business school, right, so we're in the first MBA class, and the principal of the school comes down and says, look around you. This is your classmates. They're going to be the most valuable thing you'll leave this place with, and that's your network, and it's so important, and it's a lifelong network and all this sort of stuff. And I thought, what a load of rubbish. Because I was so miserable in my day job, all I wanted to do was get another qualification, figure out what the next step would be, get a new CV and get a different job, because I just hated where I was so much. So I thought that's a load of rubbish, but actually, it was absolutely right. And I think, if you go about it in the right way, those connections and that network and those relationships can just give such richness, such value, and such interesting things. And of course, now I'm really good friends with a lot of my MBA class and still meet them often. As well as everyone I've met through Nine Others.
Yeah. And you've written a book, haven't you, on the back of Nine Others? Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was good. It's fantastic. That came out a couple of years ago. And yes, we hear some amazing stories. It's Chatham House rule, it's confidential stuff, but, there are various challenges and people that we've met, and we try to be useful, and we try to share the insights as much as we can and make lots of introductions so that we can help the network. But very near the beginning, we had a Google Doc called The Book, where we'd kind of throw in some stories and anecdotes and, amazing things that Katie and I have learned by hosting these dinners. And then after doing 9 Others for 10 years, our 10-year anniversary, we thought, crikey, we've got to share some of these stories and share some of these lessons that we've learned and that, people have contributed to. So yeah, we sat down, started writing a book, and then that came out. And it's lessons from the dinner table. So it's really questions that we think founders should ask themselves to try and help with those problems that are keeping them up at night.
Yeah, fantastic. So my final question then, Matthew, if people are interested in finding out more about 9 Others or would like you to invest in their company, what's the best place for them to find you?
So they can, if they look at 9others.com, we've got a newsletter, we've got a Substack you can get to from there. And if you want to get involved in the dinners, then on each post in the Substack, that's where I list the upcoming dinners. If you're not in London or Manchester or wherever else we host them, and you want to be a host, then get in touch with me. And, like I say, people have hosted these in dozens and dozens of cities all around the world. And the more of this sort of stuff, the better. But if it works and if somebody wants to do it in a 9 Others way and be part of this community and try and be useful, then, there's a bit of work involved, but it's just such a reward. It's fantastic. So people can get in touch by that. I'm Matthew at 9others.com, or Twitter. I'm at mstafford on Twitter, and just get in touch, say hello.
Lovely. Well, thank you very much for being my guest.
Thank you. Great to chat.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.